And then this character was fairly recently introduced, right?
Yeah, she was originally introduced in a series called Vengeance, which came out in 2011 by Joe Casey and illustrated by Nick Dragotta. She didn't make a huge appearance in the series, so I'm kind of going to skip over it a little bit, but she is introduced as a member of the Teen Brigade, which is this kind of vigilante group of teenage superpowered people who are trying to free other superpowered teens from government facilities, which I think is a theme that Marvel does a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, she doesn't make a huge appearance in the series, but she does. The important thing is at the end of the series, she leaves the team under mysterious circumstances. She gets in some argument with them and leaves. You'll find out why later. But her current kind of personality more comes from the 2012 Young Avengers run, which was written by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey, which was a series I talked about earlier. This was one of the first things I read with like really well-rounded and kind of fleshed out queer characters. So yeah, I love this.
So out of curiosity, are these comics still around? Like, have they expanded? I know they're coming to the phase of filming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing with like the Kate Bishop release and all of that.
Yeah. Young Avengers is interesting because there's two different Young Avengers series. There's one that started in 2005 and then ended, and then it was picked up again in 2012. And then that arc ended. I think it was about a year. And then all of the characters have kind of made appearances in their own, like Kate Bishop again is like a major character. I really should know this, but I'm not totally sure. I remember hearing that they brought Young Avengers back. I'm not totally sure if that's true. A couple of the members became Avengers. So I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that. But they're definitely, they're making their appearances in the movies too. So I don't know. There's been a lot of speculation that this is where the MCU is going.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they got we talked about it. When did we talk about it? We talked about there's 5 things that they're kind of setting up, and I think they're testing because they're like, which one should we go with? But they are certainly introducing a lot of the Young Avengers characters, and a lot of those characters really resonated with people. And these comics did resonate with people. So can you kind of break down America Chavez in the Young Avengers?
For sure, yeah. So just to preface, Young Avengers originally was created in 2005. That's where you get characters like Kate Bishop, Wanda Maximoff's sons, Billy and Tommy, who go by Wiccan and Speed, and Cassie Lang, Eli Bradley, he's in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he becomes a Patriot. All these characters introduced then. This series ends with the team kind of going through a couple traumatic events. They decide to part ways. This is where Kate kind of goes off and does her Hawkeye run with Clint. And yeah, so this is where the 2012 Young Avengers starts and America Chavez is first introduced. So the story begins when America is approached by Kid Loki, who also, again, makes a number of appearances in Young Avengers. And Loki tries to persuade her to kill Billy Kaplan, Wanda Maximoff's son, who goes by Wiccan. He has similar powers to Wanda, including reality bending. And again, at this point in the series, he's dealing with some traumatic events and some depression. So Loki frames it as Billy has the potential to cause some kind of destruction in the multiverse, similar to kind of what happens with Wanda in Multiverse of Madness. And so his solution is we should just kill him now so that that'll never happen. America is appalled by this proposition, and she goes to Earth 616, which is where Billy lives, which is where, most of the events take place again, to protect Wiccan. She makes a point of telling Loki that she hates going to Earth 616, so she definitely is serious about this. And then you find out, because it's Loki, this was his plan all along. He is a trickster, so he wanted her. He knew that if he outright asked her to go protect Wiccan, she wouldn't do it. But yes, this is what leads her to join the Young Avengers. Wiccan tries to perform a spell that goes wrong, and he brings this sort of multi-dimensional parasite into the universe.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, as one does.
Right.
America saves him and his boyfriend, Teddy Altman, who I think also might be making an MCU appearance soon. I don't know. I heard like rumors that he might be in one of the Captain Marvel movies. We'll see.
Where does he come from? So is he like an offspring of one of the Hulks? I'm so confused now.
He has nothing to do with the Hulk.
Again, here I am.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is...
I feel like I would never do this, but I kind of want to feed you like the most ridiculous information and see how far I can take it.
I'll be like, what is happening? What?
Well,
so he doesn't have anything to do with the Hulks?
He doesn't have
what
anything
the hell?
I'm skipping over some of the like weirder characters in Young Avengers. It goes all over the place. Like, but he has nothing to do with the Hulk.
Right, of course.
Read Young Avengers. Read Young Avengers. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
But he's related to Captain Marvel. That gets complicated too. So we'll see.
So they come together.
America saves them. Yeah, they're together. America saves them. America joins the team, and they reunite with a couple other members of the Young Avengers, including Kate Bishop. And they travel around the multiverse trying to fix this spell. And at this point, for the majority of the series, you don't learn a lot about America's backstory. She's definitely kind of the like really stoic, like punch first, ask questions later, kind of badass with a mysterious past kind of thing. And there's a couple times where like the other characters try to get her to like explain why she's there and why she's like protecting them. And she's like, no, I'm not going to tell you anything. And then towards the end of the series, it's revealed that they end up in another dimension where basically Billy Wiccan finds out he's at one point, again, he's a reality bender. He at one point is going to become this thing called, I'm going to say this wrong, I don't know how to pronounce this, the demiurge? The demiurge? It's some like weird word, but it's some like, he's going to become this like space demigod as one does. And he actually is going to be the character who creates the utopian parallel where America's from. So America, when she was a kid, she really looked up to Wiccan. She saw him as this hero that she really wanted to emulate. There's a cute little scene of her like as a kid dressed up like him. It kind of parallels how like Kate looked up to Hawkeye and then wanted to become like him. And Billy really looks up to the Scarlet Witch. And then she also kind of, when she gets her bit at the end where she talks about herself finally, she talks about how like there's this, you know, guy that I had looked up to my entire life. And now I'm realizing he's just as much of a mess as I am as a teenager, which is cute. There's, yeah, it's...
So there's time travel in this?
There's not.
What's happening?
There's not. It's Marvel, and they don't explain it, and that's the only explanation I have. Again, it's...
I'm a nod.
So, like,
I love it.
I guess, I don't know. It's another dimension. It's another universe. That's supposed to be the explanation. I don't know.
But it affects her. All right. I'm done. Keep going.
Yes. So, last little bit about Young Avengers. At the end, it also, America comes out as a lesbian for the first time at the end of the series. Remember, I said she was part of the Teen Brigade. Another one of her team members who calls himself Ultimate Nullifer, which I don't know why. I feel like that says all you need to know about him. He shows up. He's mad at her because they had a brief, like, they had kissed and he was, like, in love with her and then she ran off. And he's mad about that. She's like, dude, I'm not interested. I'm a lesbian. So that was cool. I again, going back to one of the things I love about Young Avengers is of the main set of characters, all but one of them are queer, which I think is super cool. I hadn't seen this. This was made in 2012, which again, like, I feel like, again, I think the only other thing I saw with like queer characters at the time was Glee. So it definitely, yeah. Kate Bishop is the only one who's straight, although personally, I think America and Kate should be a couple. That's just my opinion.
Yes. I don't know. What would be their ship name?
So I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, but the one time I've actually written and published fan fiction on AO3 has been America-Kate fan fiction, which is America Chavez and Kate Bishop.
Yes. There it is.
Yeah.
You already have it. Amazing.
So, it is.
You know Annie's gonna go look for it, right?
I love fan fiction. I love
Annie's gonna go look for it.
If you can find it, let me know because I've lost track of it.
Oh my gosh. This is my perfect homework assignment. I love it.
Yeah.
Everybody's going
I
to
read it
start
when I was
digging.
like 16.
That's even better.
That's
yeah,
perfect.
I know. Definitely. I'm waiting for that ship to make a comeback. We'll see. Yeah.
I think we can make this happen.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we can make this happen. All right.
Here we go.
I love it. But yeah, as you said, it was a big deal. Like that there were these queer characters and queer representation in this comic, even if it was as recent as 2012. Although I will say, I started reading comics. I read comics when I was a kid up until my teenage years, and then I dropped off, and then I started reading them again during the pandemic. And I read one that had a queer character where they were very openly queer, and I was still shocked. So it's still like, whoa. But at the time, it was well received, right?
Yes, yeah. It actually, within the queer community, it won a GLAAD Media Award, which is kind of cool. I think the 2005 series also won the same award because they introduced Wiccan and Hulkling, who are a couple. But yeah, it had fairly good reception. America's character also seemed to get fairly positive reception, which again, you guys have talked about, isn't super common with newer female characters, unfortunately. She made a couple of appearances following this in Marvel's A-Force, which was an all-women interdimensional superhero team. It was a brief series they did in 2016. I don't know how much they kept up with that, but it was cute. It was fun. She also makes an appearance in The Ultimates, which was a team started by Captain Marvel to address and solve extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional threats before they reach Earth. And she works alongside like Black Panther and Monica Rambeau, who shows up in WandaVision in that series. And then she also joins the West Coast Avengers with Kate Bishop. So yeah, she definitely, Marvel, I think, realized that she was a character that had potential and that people liked. And yeah.
Yeah.
And then she did get her own solo series following this, too, in 2017. It was written by YA author Gabby Rivera, who was, again, going back to the, she was Marvel's first Latina writer, which is great. It also took them till 2017 to hire a Latina writer. So,
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think it's interesting to point out, around this time, the Comicsgate kind of thing happened, which if you know about Gamergate, it was similar. Rivera was targeted by this. The series was still published and did fairly well. So, I guess wasn't a very successful campaign, but whatever.
Right. I think I saw a TikTok of her because I'm cool and hip. I know TikTok, but there was a TikTok of her answering questions a little bit about Chavez and the character. And of course, we have all of the gatekeeping bros who were like, oh, this character was da-da-da-da. And she came in defense and was like, hello, and had one of those moments of them accusing her of not knowing the character and her being pulling up the book going, I wrote the book, having that moment as well.
God.
So it's always fun to see those embarrassing moments for them, meaning the trolls, and I love to see it. But I did see that recently. But yeah, it's really sad that it took till 2017 to have a Latina writer writing about a Latina character that's been around. But at least they did it for the solo stuff. So what is involved in the solo ventures of hers? Yeah,
so there's been two. So there's the series, and then there was another solo series following it. They're kind of connected, so I'll talk about both. But Rivera's series follows America as she attends Sotomayor University, which is a fictional university named after the Supreme Court Justice.
Love to see it.
Yes, it's fun. It's kind of half coming of age story, half multiverse adventure. So it is following America attending classes, learning to be, a better superhero, and then also, traveling around the multiverse. I found this quote from Rivera that she gave in an NPR interview. Definitely recommend listening to this. It was really interesting, kind of talking about the character. But she said about America, I want her to be goofy and relatable, like every Latina character for the most part, with the exception of Jane the Virgin and Ugly Betty, are these tough, no-nonsense, all I do is eat bowls for breakfast. And we can have those stories, yes. We can have all the Rosa Diaz's, and like, let's also have a Rosa Diaz, and let's have her be goofy and have a moment where maybe she cries. Which I think, again, as much as I love Young Avengers and I love America's character in Young Avengers, I do remember when I was reading it around when it came out, there was some criticism of it, like America sort of falling into the like angry Latina trope or like angry lesbian trope. Both of those kind of intersect. So one of the angles that Rivera wanted to take with this was to give her, like make her, let her have fun and she goes through some relationship drama. She goes through some, all the things you deal with as a 20-something starting college. And
Right.
And she's still, super tough and badass. And it's fun. It's a cute series. She also wanted to dive more into America's backstory and particularly her Latinx identity. America is from another dimension, so it's interesting how they pull a lot of like the sci-fi elements and also like the Latinx diaspora. One of the quotes from the series that I think sums it up pretty well is from America. America says this: "After my mom's died, I left the utopian parallel. I found spaces on Earth where little brown girls blended into the scenery and became part of the family. Still, I was a tourist everywhere, lifting language and culture from the love of people who weren't my kin but held me as their own." So this kind of storyline is continued in her next solo series, which is called America Chavez, Made in the USA. It's from 2021, and it was written by Kalinda Vazquez. And we learn a little bit more about what happened to America after she left the utopian parallel. So the first place she ends up is Earth 616, where she lands in New York City, and she is adopted by the Santana family in New York City. We're a Puerto Rican family in New York City. And she's kind of raised by them, but then when she's a teenager, she leaves home after an argument with her adoptive parents. She wants to go out and keep being a vigilante and using her powers, and they want her to keep it a secret and kind of stay safe, try to be a normal teenager. So she leaves home. She ends up kind of jumping around through, again, this is what starts her like jumping around through the multiverse and all these different communities. This is also where we get the retcon, which I'll go into really quick because, again, this is the most recent iteration of her character. In this series, the America Made in the USA, America finds out that she has a sister named Catalina, and she tells America that her moms were not actually from another dimension. They were actually human scientists from Earth 616. The utopian parallel wasn't an alternate universe, but it was a private island owned by a billionaire named Dr. Gales. And America's moms were scientists who were working for a cure to a disease called Edges syndrome, which their daughter America had. So they were kind of bribed into like, come work for us and we'll help you cure your daughter. And then, of course, the billionaire ends up being evil and tries to keep them trapped there. And America's moms don't want to do that. So they end up getting killed by Dr. Gales, and America escapes. Catalina is stuck on the island still. This is Marvel retcons a lot of stuff. I don't really know if they're going to stick with this, because this also kind of messes up the whole, like, is Wiccan going to become this, like, demigod figure thing? And then they also use the original story in the movies. So we'll see. But as of right now, yeah, she is from Earth 616 again. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and that's also what we're about to talk about. That's one of the things that confuses me as a comic book reader, is they like, it's hard to keep track. And so when they're doing the movies or the shows, they pick and choose a lot of stuff that they like, which wasn't necessarily like even connected in the same canon before. Like they would pick a part of this story and a part of this story and a part of this story. So I get so confused.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's interesting too, because I think they're trying to, one thing I remember they did recently is they retconned the Maximoff's storyline. So they're, as of now, not actually related to Magneto, which I think they did because they wanted it to match up with the movie. Yeah. But then that takes back like 50 years of comic books. I don't know. Again, like, who's to say where they're going with this?
Oh, yeah, because the runner dude, the brother is the son of, oh my God, there's so many things happening in my head spinning. Why is this happening? I was like, that took me a minute too. I'm like, what? Because, that's the thing. It's like he as the runner kid, I forgot the name.
We know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. And then doesn't have a twin, so that was all levels of confusion. And then we have that and the Avengers, and now they're coming together. I'm like, oh, parallel universe, that explains everything, but it obviously doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I love the angry texts I'll get from Samantha, like when WandaVision was coming out. I felt personally attacked.
So
I'd get a text from her that's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's him or is it not him? And I was like, I'm not in control of the content.
Why did they do this? And why are they still doing this? Is my
I can
question.
tell you what I know, but I can't tell you what they're doing.
And then when you tell me, it makes me more mad because I'm like, that makes no sense. What is happening? Also because
it really
in the movie now, the twins there's no twins in the 616. They're gone. They don't exist. So okay, keep going. Whatever.
My approach to reading comics, which I'm sure people are going to disagree with this. I at this point, just like look at it the same way I do as reading like fan fiction, where I'm like, if I don't agree with something, I'm sure there's going to be another series where they're going to like completely erase that and turn it around and write the character totally different. So I don't need to pay attention to this decision this writer made.
I do that too. Yes. I do that too. My headcanon is excellent. And I also, Samantha knows, I've had this rant. I am of the firm belief that at this point, any franchise is 78% fan fiction. It's people who grew up reading 100%. It, that were fans and are writing what they want to write. And guess what? I could do that too.
100%.
All right.
So out of curiosity, because we know in the DC world, you two, they have had long-standing series like Superman and Batman come through with so many variations because we had the series from way back when, even with Catwoman. I don't see that much with Marvel. Did I miss that whole before like the beginning of Iron Man? That's the first one, right? That was originally out. Was there another series? Was there another set of movies that I missed that had these characters out there?
They did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think that's about...
But that was after.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about before.
Oh, I have a fun rabbit hole for you.
See, this is what happens.
There's a Thor movie you can find from the 80s.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I forgot
There's
about
a bunch
that.
of Spider-Man content, which Spider-Man is very interesting in ownership, who owns it. But Spider-Man has been around quite a bit before that. But yeah, not to the same extent. And that's actually a really fascinating story that is for not this podcast, but it's kind of about like bankruptcy and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
Okay, because that's what I was trying to figure out. When I was thinking about DC, Batman has been around since like the original series was what, 1970s? 60s?
Long time, yeah. Yeah.
So, and then they've had variation upon variation to the point that we're used to DC doing these things to their characters. And outside of, you're right, Spider-Man, I haven't really seen that happen. And they're trying to interweave the MCU characters.
Hulk.
Yeah.
There was the Hulk.
Well, the Hulk, they just completely pretending like that. Like they make side
but there's
jokes.
a show.
Fantastic Four.
Oh, there
too.
was a show. You're right.
I think they
You
just
were
made it
correct.
right. They didn't have the
Maybe that's the
cultural
one. Okay.
Zeitgeist as much. Zeitgeist is not a term.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was a movie or a TV series, but I did have to watch a little bit of, there was like a Captain America series that was, it's really funny. It was from like the 70s. That
Okay.
Terrible, but it's so funny
It's
to watch.
just terrible. I like that. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I just really find it interesting as where DC just like, we're just going to start over, scrap it, start over. Marvel has been like, we'll at least somehow incorporate with a side joke about it, I guess, including like bringing back the Fantastic Four people. Oh, look, we brought in this random character to be a part of this because we're going to talk about it soon. Don't worry about it. As well as bringing in X-Men to Marvel. They're like, oh, see, we're going to, but like they can't just erase it. So therefore, they try to retcon stuff, I guess.
Oh my God.
I'm very confused.
It's
Speaking of all
weird.
of these things,
Yeah.
what is the future of these shows, specifically America?
So at least in the comics, the next thing Marvel has set for America is she's going to make an appearance in their Voices series, which has already started. They actually did a Young Avengers story within. It's supposed to be like covering marginalized voices in particular. They did one about it was actually about Tommy Shepard, who's Wanda's other son. He has super speed like Quicksilver. He's also bisexual, and his boyfriend is also a Young Avenger. They did a mini comic about them for this series that was super cute. Would recommend it. But yeah, America is set to make an appearance in the series alongside Loki, who, again, she has a long time sort of rivalry / tentative allyship with in Young Avengers. So I'm definitely interested to see where they go with that. I would love to see America and Loki interact in the MCU. We'll see what happens with that.
So we're talking Kid Loki here.
Yes, yeah, this is...
Did Kid Loki die in the Loki series?
I mean, that...
Y'all remember?
No.
I don't think so.
Did
well,
it
are we
really...
talking comics Kid Loki? Because that's another story, too.
When I'm talking about the actual series, because I know Loki's supposed to come back. I just didn't know if there was an open stance to have Kid Loki being a bigger part as like an opening for that. But did Kid Loki die in that?
I don't think he does. I think he's still there.
I don't think he died, but they didn't. They kind of like jettisoned all of those characters' stories. They were like, we don't know what happened to them. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Okay.
We'll come back later.
Just checking. Because that's one of the few that I'm like, okay, I know where he came from in the TV series, which is a complete, I know, different conversation. But I'm like, all right, he exists.
Oh.
The twins exist.
I love this.
Samantha exists. Kate Bishop exists.
Yeah.
I know that the young ant girl will be around.
Cassie
I forgot her
Lang.
name. But
Cassie
there's
Lang.
like, that's just, I just read about her. And of course she exists, but not as a superhero quite yet.
Yeah, I definitely think kind of what you were saying before about like I think they're testing a bunch of things now.
Yeah.
And I think they know. This has been one of my issues with it. Obviously, it's great that Marvel at least is taking some steps forward and including queer characters. I don't think they're really committing to like yes, they introduced Billy and Tommy as children, and then they introduced America, and she wears like a rainbow pin in the movie, which I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that they like even mentioned or like made a reference to the fact that she's not straight. But like, yeah, they're not bringing up the fact that she's a lesbian. They show that she has 2 moms, but yeah, they're not talking about that at all. So we'll see. I think they're like kind of bringing out these characters because I know like it'll make people start talking about like, oh yeah, we're including more queer stories, but then they're not actually putting in the queer story part of it.
Right.
We'll see.
It does seem like they're mentioning things just to get credit for it. Kind of like how in the last Avengers, they had the all-women team up. And it is a part of the story in that they do exist in the comics. And I did see people like tweet or write about it. But the way they did it was so hokey that it seemed out of place, even though it can be referenced as, this is, canon. However, they did it in such a bad taste and so overly, like, paraded that it became almost tokenized to be like, see, we like women. Here you go. Type of thing. And it seems like that's what they do with all of those levels of like, you have these opportunities to do this, but you're not executing it very well. And I'm trying to figure out if it's just because you refuse to have those people who actually connect with that, whether it's queer people, women in the writing room. So therefore it just becomes hokey. And completely glazed over.
Or cut.
But that's just my opinion.
Cut completely.
Or cut. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the new Thor movie. I know I need to do that, but that's another one I've heard like mixed things about how they handle, like, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm not gonna say anything. But yeah, I know they have not. They have a weird track record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, I know we talked about it in our Spoiled Saturdays episode on Multiverse of Madness, but I'd love like your quick opinion on it, because listening to you go into detail of this character, it's like Samantha said, it feels so kind of watered down, and she was such a, like, as I feel often is the case with women in the MCU, is they're the secondary character and very expendable, I guess.
Yeah.
But they're kind of just propping up like these male characters that have been there.
For sure, yeah. I think you guys did a really good job of like breaking down a lot of my issues with Wanda in that movie. So that is a baseline. With America, I think I have a tendency now to go into Marvel movies with super low expectations. And I think with this one, I was pleasantly surprised to see like, oh, they actually brought up the fact that she has two moms. They had her wear a rainbow pin, like what? Which I saw it with, one of my friends who has no context for any of this. And she, like, as soon as she came on screen, she was like, wait a minute, is she gay? Like, what? Like, yeah. Which, I don't know. I mean, again, like, I guess they did a little bit of that. But at the same time, it was like, I don't know. It's 2022. You did the bare minimum.
Bare minimum, yeah.
And then, yeah. And then that aside, like, I think the actress was fantastic. I think she was, she did a really good job of portraying the character. It was a little bit weird to see her story framed as like a tool for Doctor Strange's story more, because first of all, they don't interact on the comics, which obviously, like, that doesn't really matter. Marvel can do whatever with their movies. I don't expect them to stick to the comics. But one of the things I think, this is something I keep saying that I think annoys me about a lot of their newer female characters they're including, because I saw the same thing with Kate Bishop. America Chavez is a character who is shaped by a lot of the women in her life, and a lot of the older women, a lot of whom are women of color. Those are the kind of characters that inspire her to become who she is. She's really inspired by her moms. She's really inspired by characters like Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau and, even Kate Bishop. Like, they're really good friends. And you don't see her interact with women. You see her interact with her moms, who instead of having them like die to save their dimension, they're killed in a weird accident that's never really explained. And then, yeah, and then it's like she gets all of her confidence from Doctor Strange, like a white male character who honestly, like, doesn't even treat her very well. And that was weird to me. I think Hawkeye didn't do this to the same extent, but one of the things that I know you guys brought up in the episode, like, Kate Bishop, one of the aspects of her story was she was assaulted, and I get that that's a difficult storyline to deal with, but at the same time, it's like, she really was motivated by a desire to help other women in her position. She was mentored by characters like Jessica Jones and Mockingjay, who's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's not a huge character, but there's all these women in her life that she looks up to, and they kind of just made it just Clint. And her dad, who is the one who's actually evil in the comics, and her mom dies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I think Marvel, like, they're like, we're going to include some more female characters, but with limits. They can only be kind of like the mentee, like the character that's got to learn how to be confident and whatever. But they can't be like the mentor character. They can't be, their confidence has to come from the men in their lives, which I think is an interesting message that they have right now.
Yeah. And then they either die or become so powerful and get evil.
They get evil.
Yeah.
But I'm so disappointed that Kate Bishop doesn't meet Jessica Jones. That would have been an amazing, like, the commentary and the dialogue in itself would have been hysterical. But why? I would love to have seen that.
It's so good. Like, Young Avengers, like any Marvel series, is super chaotic. It gets really corny at some points. It's incredibly 2005. But, like, I would so recommend reading it. It's got Kate's an amazing character. The twins are both amazing. Like, all of the characters in that series are really fantastic, and we'll see. We'll see what I think it's it's too soon to say with a lot of them, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my biggest issues on top of all this other stuff is I feel like they just don't give the newer characters they're introducing, who are a lot of them women or marginalized people, as much depth. And so like in the comics they might have it, but in the MCU they really don't. And so like a lot of characters I'm like, but you're so like, why do I care about this character? Because you gave me no real reason to. They're just sort of there. So I'm hoping that they'll move away from that. But yeah.
Right. I think America also, like, she's one of those characters, if there's any character, like, you can compare her to, she's definitely, like, a Thor kind of character within, like, the Young Avengers. She comes up and she's, like, already, like, she knows she's powerful. She's very confident. I think she's, like, she has some, like, internal, she doesn't really know what she's doing with her life. She's trying to figure out what, like her purpose and all of that, but she's confident with her abilities, and I think that part of the story was missing. And that's not something you get a lot with female characters. I think they tried a bit with Captain Marvel. I don't know. I have my own criticisms of that movie, but like it's not a kind of trope you see a lot with female characters. I think this is a female character where you had it and they decided to take that away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What are your opinions on the newer shows like Mrs. Marvel and SheHulk? I have not seen SheHulk, BT dubs.
I love Miss Marvel. I actually think I'm white. I can't speak from that, but at least from an outside perspective, I think like the way that they handled her story is probably better than they have other characters so far.
Right.
Which again, I think they had women, they had Muslim creators, they had Pakistani creators on the show. Right. I think that really helps. I loved that show. I thought it was fantastic. I think that also is a good kind of way that, I don't know. I know there was criticism of them changing her powers, which I get, but I think comparing it to things like America, I think they did a much better job with that. Right. SheHulk, I don't know yet. I think I'm gonna wait till the series is over before I make a judgment. Okay. I definitely, I think it's fun that they're trying new, like it's cool they're trying to do like a rom-com type thing.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I don't love that they made her like, I definitely agree with a lot of the criticism that they definitely made her look like much more toned down than, she doesn't look like a Hulk. She looks like,
right.
Women, beauty expectations.
Right.
All of that.
That's fair.
Yeah. That one, I think I have more conflicting feelings about that one. I think that wasn't really an answer, but
I get you. I like it. I like it. Yeah. You are very reined in until the conclusion. Then we'll talk about it. I do find that funny when you're talking about that, because I always think of cartoon characters that make animals into being feminine, and I'm like, but why? Why are we making this bear look like they've got hips and breasts? This is very odd. I'm not sure what to do with all of these things. And then, of course, a bow.
Yeah, no, it's so... I think that reminds me, because there was on TikTok there was like a filter that like made you green, like it was like the SheHulk filter, which first of all they also added like fake eyelashes and lipstick and all. Like I remember trying it and I was like I don't know, I felt like I looked ridiculous because I was like I just look like I'm wearing a lot of makeup right now and I'm green. But there was also like I can't remember her name, but one of the Olympic athletes that's been super on TikTok, who's like super buff, like put the filter on, and it was like, this is, she should have looked more like this. Like you're actually like super buff. You look like it. Yeah, Marvel doesn't want to give their female characters muscles for some reason, even when they have super strength. Which I don't know. Maybe America's. I love the actors who played her. But like they don't want to give women muscles for some reason.
No muscles.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about that before. People are...
Yeah.
Ooh, some
sure.
people are particular about that. I'm enjoying She-Hulk. I read a funny article about it the other day that was like, wow, it's so low stakes. And this is great. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah. That part's fun.
I didn't really realize. But yeah, you're right. I think like there's like a couple episodes left. It'll probably get high stakes then. But so far, it's been pretty like, okay. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. And with all of this stuff, which speaking of, thank you so much for being here, Joey. This was a delight. So fun. I'm glad to have somebody, Samantha, is always like, what are you talking about? I'm glad that we can like bounce off and Samantha can interject and be like, wait a minute, the two of you, hold on.
I'm just here to be like, what? Okay.
Which is great. We need that because otherwise a lot of listeners will be like in the same boat, but they won't be able to say anything. But you also are working on an episode on Scarlet Witch and religion, yes?
I am.
Yes.
So this has kind of started, I think people have been talking, there was a, like, the Washington Post TikTok guy did something about this, but one of the criticisms about the MCU's take on the Scarlet Witch that I have and a number of other fans have had is that she, in the comics, is not only is she of Jewish descent, she's also of Romani descent. So she is supposed to be a Jewish woman of color. She's not particularly religious. She's more like culturally Jewish, but yeah, her dad's Magneto. It's a big part of her character. I obviously, like with any older comic book thing, they don't always handle, their characters of color very well. They definitely lead into a lot of stereotypes about Romani people, but at the same time, it definitely, Marvel did whitewash her, first of all, and then they also took away her Jewish identity. So there's kind of the dual issue there of Romani erasure and Jewish erasure. Personally, I also think that these identities really affect her kind of powers and how she's kind of presented as like a witch and some of the like dehumanization that happens with her, which I don't know. I think Marvel could have done some much more interesting plot lines if they'd kept that in, but they did not. So yeah, I am very excited to talk about that. Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters. I'm Jewish too, so this is like, she was also like one of the first, really explicitly Jewish characters I remember reading about in comics and being super excited about. So another one that's close to my heart.
Exciting.
Yay!
I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
I'm excited to be confused by this too.
Oh yeah, no, if you thought this was confusing, I mean,
Yes.
It's all exciting. Of the Scarlet Witch stuff it goes all over the place.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm ready.
I'm so excited. I am so excited. Samantha's going to be fun. So look forward to that in October, hopefully, listeners.
Yes.
And thank you again so much for being here, Joey. This was so great. I love
it.
For sure. Yeah, of course.
Yes. Do you want to call out where people can find you or just...
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Pat, not Pratt. It's P-A-T-T. That's my last name. People misspell it as Pratt, P-R-A-T-T all the time. So it's Pat, not P-A-T-T-N-O-T-P-R-A-T-T is, yeah.
Okay.
You can find me online. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yes. Well, do that, listeners. And as always, if you would like to contact us, you can. Our email is stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff I Never Told You. Thanks, as always, to our super producer, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
Superhero indeed. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.